Why processing speed wins under pressure. Speed is what a stopwatch sees. Processing speed is what wins the play before it even starts. In performance science, processing speed is the chain from sensation to perception to decision to motor command, and all of this is unfolding in milliseconds. When that chain is clean, you don't react. You arrive already moving. In cognitive terms, this is the time it takes to encode a cue, discriminate what matters, select an action, and launch it. In sports performance terms, it's reading the tell, forecasting the lane, and firing without visible hesitation. Most training plans overload the outputs, strength, acceleration, conditioning, and underdose the inputs, what exactly the brain must process before the body can move. This is how an athlete can become weight room fast, but game slow. The nervous system can't clear the cue quickly enough when chaos spikes. The literature clearly explains experts process key information faster and more accurately than non-experts. Fewer fixations, longer task-relevant fixations, quicker, better decisions. When two signals hit you back to back, i.e., a defender shifts and a teammate calls, or a pitch breaks and the count changes, our brain cannot fully process those in parallel. This is what performance science calls the psychological refractory period, a robust, well-replicated bottleneck in choosing actions. Basically, there's a slight hesitation in the brain in determining what is going on in its environment that it needs to put its focus on and respond to. Real sport is a psychological refractory period factory. Like it happens over and over and over again. And if you never train in stacked cue environments, you're rehearsing single thread performance for a multi-thread job, i.e., you need to be training for this. Layer on dual task demands, tracking opponents while updating game state, executing footwork while solving a recognition problem, and the cost of performance is measurable. You will win more. Systematic reviews show performance typically degrades when cognitive and motor tasks collide, and targeted dual task training can improve the combined output. Translation: if you don't practice under pressure, if you don't practice decision making, if you don't practice what the brain needs to be focusing on, decision making will punish your movement. Anticipation beats reaction. Watch an expert, and it rarely looks like reflex. It looks like prediction. Perceptual cognitive research shows experts pick up earlier, more diagnostic cues. Think posture, angle, ball flight, micro changes to what's going on around them. And this doesn't even apply to, this applies to experts in domains in all areas, right? Reminds me of Gary Klein's work back in the day. The effect sizes in meta-analysis is not trivial. Experts are reliably faster and more accurate in response and anticipation tasks. Practically, they borrow time by starting the right action earlier. A powerful sub-mechanism here is the quiet eye, the final task-relevant fixation before action. Longer, earlier, and more stable quiet eye windows correlate with better accuracy while putting pressure across tasks like basketball shooting and golf putting. This is not some sort of mystical focus. It's optimized information pickup, feeding a cleaner decision and execution. Train the gaze and you train the decision. Talks about this a lot, about how the eyes are the window to the brain, about time slowing and what really changes. Athletes and performers often say the game really slowed down. Compared to in emergencies, people report time dragging. Experiments show that during fright, the memory, makes so much sense, right? We talk so much about how when we want to wire something in the nervous system, the more emotion, the more intensity we put into it, the faster it'll wire. So traumatic experiences where we're frightened, what it says here is, well, I'm not saying do it when what you can't take advantage of a traumatic or frightening experience, but what I'm saying in connection here is experiments show that during fright, the memory of the event is richer, making it seem longer after the fact without evidence that our perceptual frame rate truly increases in the moment. So these are, think of an emotional, intense events. We're going to remember things better. If your program builds horsepower but ignores the controller, you are always going to leak milliseconds at the three places that matter most. 1, perception. You look but don't see. Too many fixations in the wrong places. 2, selection. You hesitate at the fork. Your psychological refractory period, we'll just call it PRP, your PRP and dual task costs, they stack up. They're taking too much time. And 3, preparation. The right motor plan is not pre-primed. So even a fast body launches late. Perceptual cognitive training directly targets these leaks. It nudges attention to task-relevant cues, trims wasted eye movement, accelerates selection under load, and couples decisions to action. Done well, it transfers athletes to get faster where it counts, with the ball live, with bodies moving, with oxygen low. Reviews show improvements in on-court performance from such training, while also noting that transfer depends on specificity and integration have powerful effects. Train under pressure, son. Speed training used to mean stronger legs plus cleaner mechanics equals a faster athlete. The updated equation now, especially when you're competing against somebody, when we're talking about speed in team sports or combat sports, faster perception plus faster, more accurate selection plus pre-prime mechanics equals first mover advantage. The first 2 terms live in your nervous system. The last term cashes the check in your muscles. Perception earlier, longer fixations on the right information. These are quiet eye principles. Selection, less of a PRP cost, more fluency under dual task load. So making better decisions while moving. Preparation, internal models predict likely outcomes, so the motor plan is already cued. So this is how expertise is built. It looks like it's reflex. It's a specific kind of reps that have got us there. Train those, and the game slows, not because physics have changed, but because you have reduced internal latency. What does this mean for your training? Stop isolating reaction drills as a novelty. Put decisions plus movement together under fatigue with conflicting cues, so PRP and tool task costs get trained down, not dodged. I know that this episode is, we're using a lot more language here, more textbook language. However, bear with me. We'll do something in the future that's a little more tactical, practical. But you really got to understand it's valuable for me to explain this concept to you in terms of what's going on with the brain that can impact speed, decision-making, reaction time, performance. Coach the eyes. Teach where to look and when. Quiet eye style constraints. Final fixation, timing, placement. These things are trainable and pressure robust. Next, measure what matters. Don't just time sprints. Time, choice, reaction, tasks in motion. If your athlete is PRP taxed, reduce cue clutter, then progressively layer complexity to build tolerance. Next, align drills to decisions your sport actually demands. Meta-analyses warn. Transfer is best. This is like when we talk about this is so common now, this sports-specific training. Transfer is best when perception and action mirror the competitive environment. Bottom line, a fast body with a slow controller is a highlight reel in practice and a liability in games. The controller is trainable. The science is clear. And once you cut neural latency, you don't just move fast, you move first. Combat sports, team sports, that's powerful, powerful, powerful. Time dilation and performance. What's real, what's illusion, and what you can train. When athletes say the game is slowed down, they're describing a live distortion of time. But is that momentary stretching of seconds an actual change in brain clock speed or a perceptual trick? The answer, mostly a perceptual trick. In understanding the mechanics behind the illusion, we reveal training targets that functionally stretch the moment, not by bending time, but by optimizing how much you can perceive and decide what's going on inside that time frame. Here's the popular myth. Time literally slows down. This is popular lore. And this describes moments where movement feels suspended, events stretch, and decisions expand. However, rigorous cognitive neuroscience does not back up a wholesale slowing of your brain's internal clock in real time. Experiments on temporal perception under stress tend to find post hoc distortions, i.e. memory of the event seems longer, not inconsistent increases in perceptual frame rate. One recent study showed that during exercise, participants perceived durations lengthened. However, this was tied more to divided attention than physical exertion. So the magic bullet of bending time is not literal. Instead, what we can control is how dense and efficient each moment becomes. Basically, how well are we taking advantage of the moment? And again, this is a what we're talking about here, like high level on this episode, is how can you train in a way so in intense, pressurized moments, you move faster, you make the right reactions, and you make the right decisions. These are the real mechanisms of time slowing down. Think perceptual density, cognitive load, and neural efficient. Here are the real levers behind that subjective slowing. Perceptual density / information extraction. The more cues, patterns, micro changes, and predictive signals you can detect and interpret, the more content you pack into a moment. That content increases your subjective sense of a longer duration of time. Expert brains tend to extract and encode more nuances per millisecond. Again, they're able to take in more information, and then they're able to distill which of that is important, which of that is absolutely irrelevant. 2, attention gating and allocation. Attentional models like the attentional gate or pacemaker / accumulator frameworks propose that perceived time is mediated by how many pulses or events pass through an intentional gate. The more you allocate to timing, the more pulses you allow, stretching your sense of duration. Dual tasks and distraction shrink that gate, compressing perceived time. 3, cognitive loads and neural bottlenecks. Under high load, fatigue, multiple cues, decision stress, processing becomes noisy. Interference rises, bottlenecks slow you. That reduces the usable breadth of perception. In effect, your output shrinks. Your throughput. So each frame carries less capacity. This is a major enemy in competing, performing, making the right decisions under pressure. Our breath rate gets shallower, things tighten up, our vision gets smaller, so we're not able to get a full grasp of what's going on around us. 4, trajectory prediction and motor priming circuits. In dynamic tasks, part of your brain is constantly forecasting future states, ball path, opponent motion. The world's best athletes show superior sub-second trajectory prediction in go, no-go tasks with correlated activation in their brain. This means less computation time is spent guessing and more is spent executing. Again, figuring out, being able to not look at things through a straw, but being able to see everything that's going on around you, and then being able to filter out what I need to be putting my attention on, and everything else is irrelevant. When you combine these things, more perceptual content plus sharper attention allocation plus lower interference plus better prediction models, the subjective result is this. You feel like you have extra time, you make faster, cleaner decisions, and your body moves from a prepared state. This is as close to real time dilation as it gets. So again, when everything is on the line, don't you want to feel like you're just in complete control and you're moving slower and more relaxed than your competition? This is what we're working through to get you there. Training that actually stretches the moment. What the literature supports, training that actually stretches the moment. Based on modern studies, here are evidence-backed approaches you can use to train the parts that really contribute to that time-dilated feeling. Cognitive motor dual task training. Check out the podcast that we did with Sparked founder Anna Milani. She has founded a cognitive motor dual task training gym in Singapore. We're going to visit next year. Excited to have her back on. Because real sport requires movement plus decision simultaneously. Training perception embedded in motion is non-negotiable. A recent systematic review, 2024, showed that athletes typically decline under dual task evaluation versus single task. But with longitudinal, as in doing it consistency, cognitive motor dual task training, performance under this type of load improves. In both acute and chronic studies, dual task tends to slow either motor or cognitive performance, but repeated exposure allows for adaptation and improved efficiency. And man, when some of y'all be playing on the road, hostile environments, new places in the world, this is powerful, powerful, powerful stuff. Integration of doing cognitive motor dual task training into physical circuits, i.e. doing decision tasks during strength or agility drills, has shown promising results in improving both motor and cognitive outcomes. How to apply it. Layer a perceptual decision, binary or 3 choice, into movement tasks. Binary 2, 3 choice 3. Example, during the change of direction, display a cue to redirect, okay? And then measure this. So get a slow motion video camera, slow motion on your phone. You don't got to invest in a slow motion video camera. Shout out if you do. And just videotape it and see what the reaction time looks like over 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 months. 2, perception action technology. Augmented stimuli tools. Using lights, reactive discs, sensors that respond to eye or limb movement help stress to perception action coupling. A 6-week training program using perception action tools, illuminated discs, in volleyball players improve reaction times in upper and lower limbs more than traditional methods. These tools allow immediate feedback, randomized stimuli, and complexity layering, accelerating the mapping between signal and motor output. How to apply it? Use reactive visual discs or light arrays that require you to see, then decide, then move under speed. Pair it with movement. Think jumping, lateral shuffles, or dual tasks. Add a memory task or second cue. 3, gradually reduce stimulus latency or increase noise. False cues to force better discrimination. Again, you guys listening to this on audio might not be the easiest to be able to see in the mind how you lay it out. Feel free to reach out to myself and my team, and we could walk you through something based on your personalized situation. 3, focus, gaze control, and quiet eye training. If decision quality is a downstream of perception, then where and when you look is crucial. Quiet eye. QE is the final fixation before the movement. This reliably differentiates experts from non-experts. Powerful. Experts tend to have longer quiet eye durations, earlier quiet eye onset, and a more stable quiet eye behavior under pressure. Constraining gaze windows, forcing athletes and performers to hold fixation or delaying movement until gaze settles, helps train selection and reduces noise from errant eye movements. How to apply it? In drills, force final fixation before movement decision. Hold gaze at a target for as long as possible, then move. Use eye tracking or coach feedback to detect gaze wandering. So again, this is something that just does not get talked about. However, if you're looking at why a athlete or performer is not completing their physical task correctly, a variable that very much could be causing that is what is they're doing with their eyes. In high pressure training, increase visual distractions and force disciplined gaze transitions. Number 4, variability, noise, and uncertainty exposure. Real sport is disordered. Cues conflict, noise interferes, unexpected changes occur. You need to stress your perceptual system to resist breakdown under ambiguity. Mental models, predictive processing. Improve when exposed to unexpected variation. This forces the brain to detect prediction errors, recalibrate, and adapt faster. How do we do this? Again, we're talking about using cues, things like that. Well, this is in reaction drills, introduce occasional false cues that they need to ignore. Remember, biggest difference that we're talking about today between experts, high-level performers, and non-experts, amateurs, is their ability to take in all the information and figure out what is the relevant information that's going to help me perform this task better, and what's irrelevant that I just need to completely filter out. 5, action you could take to improve this. Trajectory prediction, occluded motion tasks. Because so much of high-speed sport is predicting motion from incomplete data, training trajectory interpolation is high leverage. Okay, this is the best way to explain this audio, is to be able to train in an environment in a way where you can see something coming at you, then you lose vision of it for a second, and then when you gain vision of it, it reappears. It's closer. In batting, experts perform occluded pitch tasks. Part of the ball's path is hidden and the athlete must infer the trajectory. Superior interactivity in brain circuits emerges in these tasks, right? Because again, we talk about this all the time. The brain is a predictive coding machine, right? So much of, we're talking about developing inner certainty and understanding what our potential is, and understanding that we have the power to achieve that potential, and we need to train that. That's because the brain is a predictive coding machine. So something like this, in a tactical training sort of way, what is going on is we're practicing that prediction machine, and we're practicing it in a very specific way. This trains you to guess more accurately with less visible information, accelerating decision-making skills under partial cues. How to apply it? Use tasks with a partial stimulus, e.g. a ball that disappears mid-flight or an opponent whose movement is occluded. Force early commitment decisions, then correct and update. Vary occlusion duration or start point to stretch your predictive window. C, how to stitch this into a protocol preview. So what exactly a time dilation training block might look like. 1, warm up with a perceptual primer, neural readiness, simple cues. 2, reactive movement plus decision circuit. dual task. 3, gaze fixation constraints with those circuits. 4, noise false cue variation. So cues that are inaccurate that they need to be able to filter out. 5, prediction occlusion models at higher velocity. 6, down-tempo reflection with feedback, review, decisions, error patterns, visual behavior. And if you apply this, all this stuff does not need to take that long. Each one of these can be like 3 to 5 minutes. Over weeks, you're going to see increased movement speed, better decision-making, increased performance under unpredictable environments. Over time, your perceptual throughput improves, your prediction models will sharpen, your decision to action latency will shrink so you feel like time is stretching around you. This is the type of training you can apply to help you perform at a higher level under pressure. Not only this is going to help you, but again, high pressure, high performance environments, it's not neutral. People don't perform like they do in training. It's either going to be enhanced or it's going to be detrimental. For most people, it's detrimental. So this is like a double bonus. You're getting like 2 steps ahead. The time slows down experience is mostly a perceptual memory illusion, not a literal slowing down of our internal clock. What we can train is density, how much information per moment, and efficiency, how fast we decode, decide, and act. Imperial work supports that dual task training and perception action tools deliver transfer benefits for athletes and performers. When your nervous system processes faster, the world feels slower. This isn't magic, it's physics inside biology. And the way to train it is not to react faster, but to stretch perception, compress hesitation, and prime the predictive brain. Remember, the brain is a predictive machine. All right, so I hope you guys found this helpful. Again, this is a very academic podcast episode. I wanted you guys, it helps me being able to, the fastest way to really learn something is to teach it, right? And I have a strong context of this. I've been doing this for chaos conditioning 6+ years. However, I'm always looking for new ways to apply it. So this is helpful for me to just get context of what's going on in the brain, what's going on in our physiology. How can we take advantage? Again, when we look at evolution, fight or flight, right? Eyes dilate, hands get sweaty, all the stuff that happens under pressure and uncertainty. It is our body preparing us to react faster, jump higher, and run faster than it is normally, right? How fast does a gazelle run when it's just on its own compared to when it gets chased by a lion? So we want to utilize that. How do we actually train to utilize that, right? Because it doesn't just magically happen. I mean, I get 100 DMs a day. It's being able to performing in pressure moments, it's negatively impacting their performance. When it's supposed to be a positive adaptation. So the goal of this episode here is to provide training, high level of what we can do in terms of our eyes, in terms of occlusion training, in terms of our brain's prediction machine, in terms of cognitive dual task training, is to be able to train this in a way so we can get all the evolutionary adaptations that are supposed to be there to have us perform at a higher level than we would ever thought possible, work for us rather than against us. Let's get better today.